Hello, Donagh McKeown here. Welcome to the heart of Lurgan. Behind me the linen bleachers, of course, and a few other buildings beside. The town's been here since 1629 or thereabouts, when the Brownlows made it so. It's a ribbon development, a long strip of land on the low ridge, or the shin bone, that's where it gets its name, and Lurgan. It's a town I love very much. I'm very proud to say I come from here. And that's not quite the story for everybody. It's a place that has seen much history over the years, whether that's with the linen industry, the variety of churches that were here, the productivity of the people, some really famous people and some not so famous people. Many will know that we gave our sons and some daughters too to efforts to save us in World Wars I and II. It has a rich history, and I suppose without being blinkered, it has a dark history up until the last 15 or 20 years during what we call the Troubles. With all of that, there's still a negative aspect to people's interpretation of Lurgan, mostly from the outside, but sometimes from the inside. I believe we have the ability to change that. To, if not scream and shout what's good here, to look to ourselves and see that there is plenty here to offer you and I, and then visitors thereafter. Love Lurgan. Hashtag Love Lurgan, something I kind of set up as a Facebook page about a year and a half ago. I may not have been the first to come up with the idea, but I'm certainly one that's working with it at the moment. And I'm also a tour guide. I'd like to see lots of people coming to Lurgan to see it. I'd also like the idea of people in Lurgan to come and see it too, to see and understand the rich and varied history we have here. It could be described as a heritage town, and indeed there are heritage town associations throughout the island of Ireland, mostly in Southern Ireland, where they're trying to rebuild, first of all, I suppose, the image of their town, but also what the people within the town think, and perhaps to help to rebuild around the idea of the heritage of this place. Just over my shoulder here, you'll see what was the Danske Bank. It was the Northern Bank before that, and probably another bank name before. Been here since the 1850s or so. And certainly the sandstone on top comes from Scotland, the granite and all sorts of stuff below it too. Will be from close by, and though we can't see it now, the outer black doors are in a type of material that comes from Sweden and Norway. Maybe we'll talk about that some other time. So there are many buildings here that have a rich heritage, and they're worth preserving. There is a Lurgan Townscape Heritage group and organisation that actually help people to get funding to help maintain and restructure some of these buildings, and that work's ongoing, and that's good. It's very good. What we have too are a number of places worth coming to see. For example, the historic Shankill Graveyard, where friends of the Shankill Graveyard have worked together to maintain its importance and to fight for some reworking of the old gravestones that have been destroyed, and just to generally make it accessible to all of us. It too has a rich history with many well-known and not so well-known people there, all with great stories. You see, at the core of this, it's about the story of Lurgan that I have most interest. Not that I want to rewrite the past, but that I want to bring the stories of Lurgan and the buildings of Lurgan, and mostly the people of Lurgan, to talk to each other and to hear those stories and to hear their own stories. And by doing so, perhaps make it possible for others to come here and share in this rich inheritance that we have. We have the fabulous Brownlow House, which is here since the 1840s, now with a coffee shop and restaurant inside, and many other buildings, many other parts of the buildings where they have walking tours. We have our beautiful Lurgan Park, which you know is a place where we can all go walking with or without dogs, seeing the wildlife and maybe hearing a little bit of the history of it too, and enjoying the nature that is there in abundance, the trees among other things. So that's another attraction. Further outside the town we have, of course, Oxford Island, which attracts many people, whether it's for the water or whether it's just to ramble around the paths that are there too. There are lots of places worth seeing here. In the opposite direction, and I'll point the camera towards it now, we have our great church here, the Shankill Parish Church, which has been here in some form or other since the 1730s. Previous to that, it was based down in that Shankill Graveyard, where there is a church, or remnants of a church, or at least the remains of what was the Church of Wilkie from way back in the 6th century. So we have a rich archaeological history here too. We have a rich church history, if you like, and of course we have the Gaelic history that predates all of that. The whole area was under the Gaels and under the McKeown clan, who based themselves as to where the present day Brownlow House is now based. There was a cairn there once, and some of the stones from the cairn are, if not visible, are certainly nearby. So we've been here for a long time, a very long time. Discoveries over the last 40 or 50 years, discovering, for example, a log boat that was found in the middle of the Munchies, uncovered and preserved by the peat and the bog, and still surviving, and you can still see that in the Lough Neagh Discovery Centre. There's a story. So we know how the Gaels lived here to some degree. We know how the planter town became what it was, and we know lots of the history. So come out and find out more about it. Come and see it. Let's hold a beacon that the rest of, if not the area, perhaps the county, perhaps the country, perhaps overseas, can find out more and wish to dip and delve thereafter. I'm actually standing just where the bleachers are here, as to where the original middle row would have been in the town. The street is fairly wide, but right here in the middle was a row of buildings, and right where I'm standing here is where I believe was the market house or the linen hall, somewhere between the two. And at a conference just earlier in the week, I was not quite introduced, but reintroduced to the idea that you can reconstruct these old buildings with a minuscule of information, perhaps an old photograph, perhaps the lines of where the building might have stood, and you can recreate it in 3D and perhaps bring augmented reality tours to see this place as it may have been in the centuries before. This is a fascinating place. This is a place full of stories and full of interest. Perhaps we can bring and engender more interest. I'm a tour guide. There are other tour guides throughout the town that will take you to various parts. Maybe we should look to come and see just what is inside our town. This is a town too that is in need of regeneration, and there's a story or two in that as well. Regeneration in times when it seems so much austerity is around that you'd be foolish to even think about setting up a business, for example. Yet businesses will do so and deserve an opportunity to do so. There are questions about the affordability of rates and different things. Perhaps this is now time to challenge those kind of circumstances without breaking the bank or without giving stuff away. But we do need some sort of building, and we do need some sort of strategy about getting businesses in here. And perhaps it's time to really force through and push through with the idea of bringing populations back into the town. There's plenty of spaces above buildings. There are plenty of opportunities to bring people to live in this town. Perhaps it takes a year or 2 or 3, but it also takes perhaps the will of those who have an opportunity to change such things, like the council, like the executive, and really forcefully push towards developing this whole kind of strategy. It's been talked about, and I'm letting the tumbleweed blow in the background. Let's see some action on that particular front. I have to say this is a very personal kind of interpretation and very personal thoughts, but I'm sure others are in a similar frame of mind and otherwise. What could really be useful, yep, really useful, might be a central hub for organisations to meet in this town, in this centre, and come together. Largely because there isn't one existing in the centre of the town, at least at present. And if there is, perhaps they're within the outer bounds of of availability, or indeed of affordability. So is this a chance for councils and others to become proactive and offer spaces that sit, if not idle, almost idle, and perhaps offer them to a wider community base for access and for use? And there are plenty of other good groups that are doing this in their own locales, whether they be football associations, Gaelic associations, community groups elsewhere. Why not have one in the middle of the town? It's just a suggestion among many others. So perhaps I've said enough, too much, or not enough. We'll leave the thoughts up to you. But those are my thoughts on this mid-November afternoon in a cold, chilly, yet very warm and fulfilling town of Lurgan.